A portion of this just nuts Hummer video is sponsored by Flow.
Roger, Eagle, and you're safe. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
So this is a 2022 Hummer EV. And everything about this truck is in glorious excess, completely by design. But something this big, this kind of ostentatious, you gotta ask the question, who is it for? Let's dig in to the brand new Hummer Electric. So believe it or not, we actually have Arnold Schwarzenegger to thank for this thing and the entire Hummer brand existing. Story goes, AM General was making the Humvee for the US military. Schwarzenegger saw one driving somewhere, and I presume sounded like this, and was like, I want one. And they agreed to make one for him. Ultimately, they thought that other people might want to buy one, because, you know, giant car, gas prices were low at the time. Ultimately, they were bought by General Motors. We had the H1, H2, H3. 2010 came around, gas prices went through the roof, and GM ultimately killed the brand, opting to bring it back, its resurrection, when things started to go electric. But they kept the ethos of the Hummer. I mean, just like looking at it, you can very clearly see sort of harking back to that very first Hummer and even back to the Humvees. And this thing is huge. In fact, just to give a sense of how wide it is 6 inches wider than an Escalade. And General Motors thought it was so big that, you know, belonged on the moon. Hence the space stuff going on behind me. And all of that bigness and size is coming with an equally powerful truck. So you are getting 1,000 horsepower. You're getting a battery pack that's over 200 kilowatts. It's going to enable about 330 miles of range. Everything about this is giant and in your face. How's it gonna drive? It's a truck. It's gotta drive well. Check it out. So everything about the Hummer EV, everything stems from like its size. It's the widest car I've ever driven. But because of its width and the flat front, there is a decent amount of wind noise as you drive. And it's funny, you see a lot of new EVs now. You know, you see it with Lucid, Mercedes EQS, Tesla models. There's such a huge push towards like, what's the drag coefficient? It's gotta be the slipperiest car. GMs here just went, forget it. We're just gonna put like a 200 plus kilowatt hour pack and make it incredibly inefficient, which I think kind of goes along with like the Hummer ethos. It's big, it's in your face. But I will say, just driving this car, it drives really well. I was shocked at how well the car drives, how nimble it handles, which is nuts for something of this just behemoth size. So I drive a Rivian R1T normally, and that's not a small truck, it's relatively big, but the turning radius is really big on it. I mean, for a truck this size, I just made a U-turn into the middle lane of a 3-lane road, which never would have happened in a car this big. It handles so nimbly because of their rear wheel steering. It's like a magic trick, which is also helpful when you're trying to pull into a really tight parking spot, which this barely fits in between the normal parking spot lines. So because the car is so wide, the windshield is obviously really wide too, but it's also narrow, which is a bit strange. So there's not like a lack of visibility, but I'm very aware of, you know, this huge area up here. Also, because of the dimensions are weird, it's probably one of my favorite strange quirks of the car. It has 3 wipers, which is just a weird thing to see happen. But driving this thing in just a normal mode, because of the up to 1,000 horsepower and around 11,000 real foot-pounds of torque, this thing moves. And for a truck that weighs 9,000 odd pounds, it is nuts. So hypothetically, I got a car next to me, and there's a merging thing up here for the car on the right. So if I was inclined to be perhaps a bit aggressive, I may try to get in front of this car so they couldn't get in front of me. Here we go. See ya! Now, like, it might not be as fast as some of the Teslas or other EVs, but again, because the car is so big that you feel the speed more, it feels faster, and it is nuts fun to drive.
I know I've said it before, but like, this thing is a beast, and it's an inefficient beast, which I guess is kind of true to like Hummer's core. They've always been not very efficient. Just for comparison here, the MPGe on this guy is 47, and a Tesla Model 3 is a little over 130. Now, obviously, different classes of car and size and different fronts, but just to get a sense of its inefficiency, and when you factor that in, the fact that it's got a range of about 330 is pretty staggering. And it's doing all of that because of its battery pack. But GMC took a real interesting approach to how they put the pack inside the car. They actually split it, just to make the math easy, into 200 kilowatt hour packs to kind of wise out. So when you charge it, it's going to charge both packs, which is how they're able to get that 350 kilowatt hour max charging. And the charging experience was typical for pretty much any non-Tesla EV. You charge at home, you're going to be fine. If you go to Electrify America, EVgo, you're at just rolling the dice if those chargers are going to work. The fastest charge speed that we saw when the battery pack was on the lower side, it was about 215, which is still relatively fast. When you hit to 80, like most EVs, it really throttled down, in this case, to about 50 kilowatts. Huge, inefficient car, but surprisingly long range. And again, 6 inches wider than an Escalade. 9,000 pounds here. This thing is a tank in every sense of the word.
So like pretty much every EV, it says one pedal driving, regenerative braking. And again, because the truck is so big, it's relatively strong, but you also have a paddle on the left side, which makes it even stronger. So if I'm coming up to a stop and I let go of the accelerator, I can gradually coast and I can learn how to feather the accelerator to sort of do it very gradually. But if I let off and then pull this pedal, it's pretty aggressive, and you can definitely get very easy one pedal driving. Obviously you're putting more power back into the pack. So this being like a flagship General Motors product, it has their Super Cruise built in. And I'd used Super Cruise before, but this is the longest testing period that I've had. It works on pre-mapped highways, and it is a hands-off system. Your hands don't have to be on the wheel, but you do have to be very alert. It was really good, and it's probably the closest competitor as far as ease of use and accuracy that I've seen to Tesla's autopilot, which I think is a huge compliment considering how advanced Tesla's system is. It does not do everything that system does, but what it does do, keep you in the lane, stay where you're going, it does it incredibly well. And I've only had this car, time of this filming right now, this is the 3rd day that I've had it, but I have found the range estimates to actually be pretty accurate for what I've seen for how far I've driven, which is nice to have.
This one is obviously the top trim line here, like a lot of EVs are doing right now. It's coming out, the real expensive ones first, about $110,000. And then different models will come out over the subsequent years that drop that price and drop features. But if a pickup truck's not your jam, there's also an equally gymongous SUV coming out as well. With a truck this powerful also comes great responsibility in the drive modes. And you've got a lot of drive modes there in typical Hummer fashion. Even the animations are like in your face. So you've got your just normal mode. You've got a My mode where you can customize how you want things to be. You've got a towing mode, all-terrain mode, and an off-road mode. And then a hidden mode, if you know how to activate it, that'll activate Crab mode there as well.
So there's a mode switcher down here to activate Crab mode. Hold it down, and then keep holding it, and let go. And you can turn the wheel as much as you want, but it's more drastic. You just do a little wheel turns, and you kind of just go sideways, yet still stay going forward, which is weird. Turn it the other way. This is fun. This is the first thing I showed people whenever I started driving the car. Just crab walking through a parking lot.
All right, so this is a giant truck. It's got a 200 kilowatt hour battery pack, a mess of horsepower and torque. You'd expect it to go pretty fast. It can go 0 to 60 in 3.3 seconds in what GMC is calling watts to freedom.
Come up to a stop sign, let all cars go. All right, so my foot on the brake, brake harder, brake harder, brake harder. Now it says floor it, so I'm gonna just do that here. Oh, Jesus! I don't know how to describe that. Like, it's not the fastest 0 to 60 time, but feeling that 3.3 odd seconds in a 9,000 pound truck, that's like a whole thing.
Now, this isn't something you can just turn on right away. So if, you're rolling up to a Model S Plaid and you want to flex a little bit, you got to give yourself a few minutes just to adjust the suspension. It turns off a lot of things and sort of gets those tri-motors ready to go. But if you do have enough time to get that enabled and you roll up next to a Model S Plaid, you're still going to lose. But you're going to look good while you are losing, and it's not going to be a blowout. I've driven a lot of fast cars. I was shocked at how fast this felt, just because something this giant going that quick just seems like it's defying all laws of physics. It was absolutely incredible, slightly terrifying, but I think makes this just a really fun truck. I can pretty much do everything.
On a bit of a light off-road trail here. We had to take it somewhere just to see what it could do, and this thing handles so well. We've got it in off-road mode, so we got plenty of clearance. The suspension's doing a really good job. It's strange to say it feels smooth off-road, which is maybe not what you want, but this thing can handle anything. But the same knock on it is the same thing about the truck in general. It is so wide, I don't know what we're gonna do, and somebody needs to pass us, because this is not the widest of trails.
When it comes to like the off-roadness of this truck, it's not bringing anything brand new to the table, but it's bringing a lot of things sort of to the trail. A lot of things you'd want your truck to have. So we're looking at 35-inch tires. Those are awesome. It's got a rear locker and a front locker. We've got recovery hooks, tow hooks. Obviously, you've got things like skid plates on here. Cameras underneath so you can see what you are going over. Side angle cameras, so you can see if you're gonna scrape your side or how much room you have before you go off the side of a trail. And places like that, or crab mode, would be really helpful. Plus, they made it crazy easy to take the roof panels off of the truck, and they made room for them to store in the frunk, which is pretty cool as well. The other thing is it's got air suspension, which is really dynamic. You can control the height of it, things like that to make it really nice to have, and also really capable on the trail. Where we took it was a very mild trail. It's not my truck. I didn't want to risk anything happening to it, but this thing could go pretty aggressive on some pretty extreme trails, I'd imagine, and be totally fine.
I keep coming back to who this is for, and I'm finding people in general, at least the ones that stop me, have no idea what to think of this. Like, first of all, people don't know what it is. Then they see it's a Hummer, they don't know it's electric. Either they like electric cars and love it, or they love big gas-burning cars and then don't know how to feel about this because it's electric, but then it's a Hummer, so they kind of like it. People have been all over the board with this, and people stop me, ask questions. The first question that I've got all the time is like, it's electric, which is just nuts to people. It has been probably the most polarizing of all the cars that I have driven or tested. I kind of like it.
The Hummer is wonderfully ridiculous in the best ways possible. With a battery pack that size though, you're going to need to charge it. And you're gonna need something that can actually put enough power into that gigantic pack. So enter this video sponsor, Flow. Their Home X5 is the perfect companion to a truck of this size. First, it is made of 100% aluminum. You can install it indoor or outdoors if you want. And it's not just that box on a wall design. It actually looks good, it feels good. You've got a 25-foot industrial strength cable, so if you need to run a cable under a garage door or leave it outdoors, you do not have to worry. It's got a built-in holster inside of it. And with the X5, you get full smartphone controls. You get an app. You can start and stop charging, which is awesome. You can also set a charging schedule. So if you want to charge off-peak hours, maybe at midnight, the app will give you full control over your Home X5. It's got everything you need to charge your Hummer or whatever other EV you have. If you've got an EV, you're thinking about getting an EV, Flow is an awesome way to get power into your car. If you want to learn more about the awesome Flow charging lineup, put a link to them down below. So being a tech guy, The tech inside the cars is generally what attracts me or disgusts me from a car. So I was pretty interested to see how GMC is doing this generation of their tech. I hadn't really sat in a GMC car for about 5 or 6 years. Being a modern EV, I think there's some things that you expect it to have. And the big one for me was over-the-air updates. And this does support over-the-air updates, which is giant to see the car and the trucks improve time over time. It's nice to see the legacy automakers really adopting that modern tech. So we've got two main displays, as a lot of high-end cars do. The big one is 13.4, and then the one in front of the driver behind the steering wheel is 12.3. So the main infotainment screen is actually very quick. I was worried that this is going to be underpowered. It wasn't. If you're pinching and zooming, things were relatively smooth, but who's doing that all the time? But just swiping through apps, all that stuff was good. I like how GMC has set up the UI. It's very heavily Google integrated. It's out of the box, not connecting your phone at all. You've got Google Maps. It's got a voice button on the steering wheel. Tap it once, Google Assistant opens up. Then if you have an iPhone, you're connected via wireless CarPlay. If you long press that same button, Siri pops up. That's awesome. And the integration is tight, it's seamless. GMC didn't even bother trying to do their own navigation. They just threw in Google Maps. It works well. You can customize where the tiles go on the home screen. Wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, that's obviously really, really nice to have. One thing that surprised me that I really appreciated with this car, when I was using Apple CarPlay and using maps, the map directions, it turns out were coming up, actually showed on that 12.3-inch display behind the steering wheel. Usually there's not the tightest integration between that and the CarPlay screen, so I appreciated that here. There's also other little screens, a bunch of switches below that main display that does things like seat cooling or seat heating and all of your HVAC controls. That was a learning curve to figure out how that worked. It's a display and it's dynamic and it moves. While I really like what's in the car, I still do think there's some missed opportunities. This car has a bajillion cameras going on. You've got cameras under the truck, on the sides, all around. But I would have liked when I put the turn signals on for the blind spot cameras to show up there, especially on a truck this big. Not to say that it has blind spots necessarily. It's got big mirrors and blind spot detectors in those mirrors, but because the truck is so high, oftentimes you just can't see the cars next to you because you are over their roof line. So I think that was a big miss, but hopefully because this car gets OTAs, that will eventually come. And all that tech screams like next gen car. This is the way cars are going to be. Big displays, fast, tons of cameras. All that is great. But when you want to drive the car, you gotta push the on off button. And when you want to get out of the car, you gotta turn on the emergency brake. I think that was a big miss here. I don't need an on-off button. When I'm in the car, the fob is detected. Let me just step on the brake to turn it on. When I put the car in park, automatically turn on the electronic emergency brake, like a lot of modern EVs do. I think that's more of an old school legacy approach to cars that they feel like people want to have that on-off button. I don't think it's necessary. Another omission would be some sort of dash cam recording functionality I would have liked to have had in here, or recording when the car is parked. These are features that you see in a lot of popular electric vehicles. I would have liked to have really had that here in the $110,000 Hummer. Also, all over this car, there's like a bunch of like moon themes. You open it up and the speaker grills of topography of the moon. There's like moon theme stuff all over this truck. I don't know why. I know like the marketing reasons why it's there, but it doesn't quite make that much sense. I will say it was very helpful for folks who are, shooting a review of it, but the moon stuff, I don't know, I think maybe just went over my head. You don't need me to tell you about the design. At this point, you probably already know if this look is for you or not, but for the probably two of you who are on the fence, I'll walk you through the aesthetics of the car. Very clear everywhere you go, you are driving a Hummer. From the front to the steering wheel to the sides, it says Hummer absolutely everywhere. It is in your face, just like the car itself. And because it's over 80 inches wide, you gotta have those lights on top, those amber lights. I think it's a cool touch. I like the way that looks. You also have steps to get in, which is awesome. I think it would have been cool if they were retractable, but really helpful to get in to this absolutely gigantic truck, especially if you've got the air suspension all the way up. So the truck bed is 5 feet with a just under 1,500 payload capacity, so it's almost full size. You do have a power tonneau cover, which I really loved having. I also absolutely love, I think this is the best tailgate going, but GM's Multi-Pro tailgate is incredible. So you can lower it and use it like a workbench. That's kind of cool. You can use it to extend the bed beyond the 5 foot that you get ordinarily. It's load bearing. Then you can drop it all the way down and kick out a footrest to get in and out really easily, or if you just want to hang out and sit on the back, you got a really easy spot to do that with a full step. You also have a kicker Bluetooth speaker built in, which didn't sound that great, but it is built in to the tailgate of the truck. The front trunk is powered. I love that the hood, kind of the part that says Hummer, comes up with it, so you get a flat load floor. They also put in hooks there, so if you're getting groceries or shopping bags, you have places to hook them all to. I really appreciated that. You'd probably look at this thing and be like, it's gonna be a beast for towing, right? All that torque, all that power. I bet this thing can just tow for days. It can tow 7,500 pounds, which is not bad. It's certainly not, like the diesel trucks out there. And if you think that number's low, remember it's also kind of towing itself. It's a 9,000 pound truck, 3,000 pounds of battery. So it's moving a lot of weight, even if all that weight's not, on a tow hitch in the back. I keep laughing when I look at the design of this. You see modern EVs that are so focused on coefficient of drag. The EQS, the Lucid Air, the Teslas that are so focused on being slippery. And GMC was like, nope, we're gonna make it a block. And we want everybody to notice that block. It was the Hummer way. And I think the heart of the OG Hummer, the heart of that very first one that Schwarzenegger wanted, is still very alive here. Like I said earlier, the design here is going to be very polarizing. But out of all the cars and trucks I have ever driven, none of them ever turned as many heads as this guy. I was parked at Trader Joe's going grocery shopping, and some very angry women approached me, asking me what kind of miles per gallon this got. A little bit judgy in her eyes. I let her know it was fully electric. And that stopped the discussion right there. But people were stopping me, taking pictures everywhere I went. And some were taking pictures to kind of laugh at just the giantness of it all. Some were taking pictures because they thought it was the coolest thing they'd ever seen. But no matter what side they were on or why they're taking those photos, they wanted those pictures. And I think that's a really important thing for electrification going forward. You can have EVs that are small, that are fast, that are efficient. But you could have the other side of that too. You could have the fun. You could have a big, huge, ostentatious truck that can do absolutely everything that just happens to be electric. And I think that is the ethos of Hummer, what Hummer's been about from day one. And that heart that Schwarzenegger originally wanted is still very much alive with the Hummer EV. And I'm not sure who the buyer this is or who it's for, but if it is you, you'll get a car that is extremely fun to drive, handles better than anything this size has any business doing, extremely capable, is going to turn a lot of heads. At the very least, there's something to talk about with strangers.
Stand up.
Trying to get the steering wheel between my legs.
Start gasping for air. Cool. All right, we can cut.
Cut.